What's up, guys? Today we're going to be looking at a TvZ build order tutorial. This one was pretty requested. A lot of people wanted to do one tutorial instead, but I said nope because that build is bad. So we're going to be looking at probably the most meta build right now. It's definitely the most common in high-level TvZ. I just think it's better than 2-on-1 right now because you can just get that 2-2 maxed army way faster while also putting pressure on early game. When it comes to 2-on-1, like, you're pretty much just relying on the fact that you need to do damage or you're just dead. And I don't think that's a great way to play TvZ right now. You want to be able to just put some pressure on and then be able to build up towards that late game army as fast as you can. So this is a game I just played. It was my first game of the day, a little sloppy, and I'll point out the mistakes, but I think I executed this overall pretty well. So let's jump right into it, my dude. So to start things off, it is a gas after racks build. It's a big debate whether or not you should actually do gas before racks or not. The only difference is the marine. If you get gas after racks, you get a marine after the reaper, and if you don't, you just skip the marine. Personally, I prefer the marine for two reasons. One, if the Zerg player does end up going pool first, you can actually use the marine to defend the command center instead of just canceling it. And it can also push back early game overlords, which I think is pretty good to have. You don't want the overlord just sitting over your production while you build things. You want it to actually, be a little bit afraid of you. So yeah, like I mentioned, you go depot, barracks, and then gas after racks. Just a normal opening. Let's fast forward a little bit here. It is just a regular Reaper expand as well. Nothing fancy. It is just TvZ. So I don't actually scout in TvZ anymore. I don't have anything against if you SCV scout. I think if you're going to SCV scout, you should probably use the SCV to kind of sit at the third base and try to delay the third. And honestly, the main point of the SCV scout is just to check if he goes pool first or not anyways. So you can either, if you're going to SCV scout, you can either just check to make sure that this hatchery is on time and then go home immediately, or you can do that and then you can try to delay the third. Just don't stick around. Don't go into the main base. There's no reason to do that or anything. So like I mentioned, you get the marine here, and then you follow it up with the factory, and then immediately after the factory, you throw down your gas geyser. These are just coming as you have enough money for them. There's no like build order timing here. It's just factory gas. And then you send the Reaper across the map immediately. Whether or not you SCV scout depends on what you do with this Reaper. If you were to SCV scout and see it was a normal time base, I would personally send the Reaper here because the Zerg player will sometimes try to hide a drone so that they can just build the hatchery without getting killed by the Reaper. And if you send the Reaper here right away, you can actually try to deny that or at least delay it to some point. But since I didn't SCV scout this game, I'm just sending it right to the natural because I want to make sure that I'm not actually getting all-in. And like I mentioned before, sometimes if the Zerg does go pool first, what he'll do is he'll sneak lings around the Reaper and then he'll send it to try to kill this. If it's just 2 lings, you can kill it with Marine and then the SCV helping. And if it was 6 lings, you'd have to pull. I think the number ended up being 8 workers. The reason for actually defending it is I feel like that if you were to just send SCVs down and keep the command center alive, even if you lost like 2 SCVs defending, I feel like it's more cost efficient to do that than to actually lose the command center or cancel the command center and then rebuild it and then have to float it to your natural. It seems like a lot worse off, and I feel like I've seen a lot of higher level Terran players doing that as well, so I would pull SCVs, but it's up to you. You can cancel the command center and rebuild it, to each their own. But moving on. Reaper's going to come in, just kind of make sure the base is here, poke at the lings a little bit. Nothing fancy with the Reaper. We're not trying to lose it. We want to keep the Reaper alive because this is what's going to scout the really bad all-ins, like the roach timings or the Nidus worms. Once I see that the Zerg is going for a normal base, I just kind of check the 2/3 to make sure if he's taken them or not. If I were to not see him take it for like another minute, I would probably send the Reaper in the main base to check for a layer. And if you see a Zerg on 2 base with a layer, it's either going to be Muta or it's going to be Nidus Worm. So that's why you kind of want to keep this alive, or else you have literally no way of scouting it without scanning. And scanning just isn't a reliable way of scouting Zerg. So yeah, you're gonna swap these, and we're gonna start making some Hellions. Both gas geysers were saturated immediately to 3 workers, and we're gonna make 6 Hellions. I think that's the pretty much the universal number. Sometimes I'll see players go 8 Hellions, but this is just one variation of the build. It's important to keep in mind that 111 in TvZ has like literally like 10 or 11 different ways of doing this, and I'm just showing you like the one way that I do it. There's like and it all comes down to like how many Hellions you make and then what you do with the starport and if you build an armory. So like for example, this game we're going to build 1 liberator, and in other variations you can get like a Viking in a liberator, you can get a medevac in a liberator, you can get 2 liberators. You can do it however you want, and honestly all the ways are good as long as you're kind of pressuring the Zerg. But the way that I prefer to do it is to get 6 Hellions and a liberator, so that I can use the liberator to actually kind of distract the Zerg while I try to run the Hellions in, which doesn't always work, but you know, when it does, it's pretty auto win. So but obviously if you can't do damage with the Hellions, like keep them alive for later on. I think that's important. A lot of times I'll just throw away my Hellions for no reason and chat bullies me for it, but you know, I am Terran. I do like to YOLO my units, and I'm not ashamed. Let me rewind for this depot timing, by the way. I forgot to mention this. Like right after the first 2 Hellions start, you're going to start building your wall. You want a wall. On every map, there's only 2 maps in the map pool that you can get by with a 2 depot and a CC wall, but most maps it's 3 depots and a CC. So that's why you want to like immediately with your 3rd depot start building it. Anything else? No, we're caught up. Yeah, and just with the SCV building the depot, he's the guy that just builds all 3 of them just on repeat to make it easy for you guys. So for this, we start the liberator. The barracks obviously got a tech lab, and it's just going to pump marines. For the stim timing, literally as you get 100 gas here is when you get it, and make sure you start the liberator first. You don't want to go stim then liberator, because your liberator is going to be delayed if you do that. So you're always going to want to go liberator then stim. Yeah, you just keep making Hellions. Remember, we're going to go up to 6 Hellions here. And then right as about the 6 Hellions are going to finish is when you're going to have enough money for this command center. As you can see, we're saving up now. So we're going to plop that down. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move the Hellions out. And the reasoning for walling this off so early is because while the Hellions are out, sometimes the Zerg players will try to sneak Lings by. So you never want to leave your base without it being walled off. You never want to do that. Like, you're just opening yourself up to actually lose to 12 Lings that run into your natural and kill 80 workers. So don't be a Jason. Wall your base. So following it up with this, remember we did build that liberator wherever it went to. Units. Liberator. Here he is. So I like to send it to either the 3rd or the main base, depending on what map it is. Like, I send it to whatever base is closest. And then while it sieges up here is where I'm just kind of trying to look for the opportunity for the Hellions to get in. I try to like go from different angles just to kind of surprise them. So the Hellions kind of swing in here, but I end up seeing these Lings and I back off because this doesn't look like something that I can take on, especially with the Queens on the top of the ramp. They can kind of just get the Hellions down to like 2 or 3 Hellions, and then it's not that cost efficient at all. I think it's a lot more beneficial just to save these, and you can morph them into Hellbats later on, and you can actually use them while you're pushing with your Marines. But yeah, while that's going on, your liberator is just kind of searching for drone damage, you know, poking at Queens, doing what it can. I could have sent it into the main base to also scout to see what he's doing. Like, if you had an early layer, I can see if he's going mutas or something like that, but I kind of just got lazy and sent it here and then kind of forgot about it. But that's it for like the Hellion liberator deal. After, if you can't get damage done with the Hellions, they should really just sit on the edge of creep, which I think I do, and just kind of keep the creep back if they can. You know, don't go on creep, because then you're going to get surrounded by Lings for no reason. And back to the build order part of this, we're going to rewind because it's kind of difficult to do both at once. And honestly, like, full disclaimer for this build, by the way, it's not easy to do. Like, you're microing a lot while doing a lot of macro work at home. Like, this isn't for lower level players at all. Like, you need to be able to keep up with this or you're going to actually just fail horribly. So definitely keep that in mind. So after the liberator, starport's going to throw down a reactor, and the factory is going to throw down a tech lab. The tech lab is going to be kept on this factory, and the starport's going to be swapped with this barracks. So you get 3 barracks. So the idea here is when both of these barracks finish, they each have a reactor for each barracks, and then you can just start pumping Marines as fast as possible. It just gets you up to that 16 Marine count with 2 medevacs in the most efficient way, so you can actually start doing damage. The timing you want to hit here is 7 minutes with your first 2 medevacs. I don't actually know if I hit it this game, but we'll see. And then after that, you throw down 2 NG bays and then 2 gas geysers right after the barracks. They all kind of come one after another. And the ordering isn't super important, but I mean, you should just get barracks, NG bay, gas. It's the best way to do it. But don't sweat it if you're like too busy microing Hellions and you're like, holy crap, I have 800 minerals. I'm going to throw everything down at once. Like, that's totally fine. But if you were to do it the efficient way, this is how you do it. So like I said, this is going to lift off. The starport's going to get its own reactor now, and it's going to pump out medevacs when that's done. And then this kind of just goes into your traditional kind of TvZ build order style. We're going to throw down 2 more racks. Each of these racks are going to get their own reactors so that we can just get mass marine tank. So with depots, I mentioned this while I was playing this game. If you keep the Hellions alive, throw down an extra depot because you're actually going to get supply capped. And I end up getting supply capped this game, which isn't great. But usually I end up losing the Hellions, so it doesn't really occur to me. So I'm usually okay on supply, but yeah. Throw down an extra depot. The timing I use for this command center, and by the way, right away when this finished morphing into an orbital is when you float it over. Unless there's like literally Zerg units at your door, there's no reason not to do this. So yeah, as soon as you float this, I throw down 2 depots to finish the wall off. Like I mentioned earlier, you never want to leave your base unwalled. Like, that's really bad practice for TvZ. You're just opening yourself up to free damage. You want to close that up as fast as possible. And then for the rest of the game, until you're literally at 200 supply, you're going to be making 2 depots at a time at this point. So after these 2 depots finish, you're going to build 2 more depots. Then after those finish, you're going to build 2 more depots until you get to literally 200, and then it's going to work out. Obviously, these start your 1-1 upgrades, and then this floats over, start making SCVs. And with the depots, like, depending on the map, you always want to like use your depots to wall sections off. So like I'm gonna wall this section off with depots this game. Like if you're gonna make depots, you might as well make them useful, right? Like have them block pathways. It's actually gonna save me in this game, I think, because I think he attempts to do a run by, and his banelings get stuck out. This armory, this was late. The armory is supposed to start halfway through your 1-1, and then it'll line up. But obviously, I'm bad this game, so that didn't happen. So the goal, what we're working towards now, and this is important to note, we're aiming for a 10-minute 2-2 175 army supply attack. Now, not always can you accomplish this attack because sometimes the Zerg will just constantly run units by, but that's like the goal macro-wise here. The closer you are to that 10-minute 2-2, like the better off you're going to be. So I should already throw down gases here. Like once you get 16 SCVs on this space is when I usually throw it down. And then the medevacs popped out, obviously. We ended up hitting like 23 seconds late. This should be able to hit at like 7:05-ish. Which is, you know, not great this game, but it's definitely possible. So the idea in this phase of TvZ is that we're going to start clearing creep. Because like I mentioned before, we're aiming for that 10-minute timing. And if we come down the map at 10 minutes with our entire army, and there's a literal sea of creep in our way from any of the bases, we're not going to get damage done. So the goal here is to literally kill as much creep as we can to at least clear some degree of an attack path for our later follow-up push. So while this happens, of course, we're going to still make medevacs. And then once these 2 medevacs come out, we're also going to load up 16 Marines, and then we're going to dual prong. In TvZ, if you're dual pronging and killing creep, it literally makes it 10 times easier. If you're just doing one drop, he's just going to have his army wherever your army is, and you're never going to actually kill creep. So the Hellbats came with me. Hellbats are always going to trade cost efficiently versus masslings, so that's kind of why we keep it alive. And then here's that Ling run by I mentioned in the wall. Gets finished just in time, protects us from those Banelings. And yeah, we just kind of kill creep at this point, trade as we can. The only other two things that happen with build order this game, obviously start 2-2. When 1-1 finishes, you should be able to afford that right away. Mine was late this game because, yet again, I forgot. At around 9 minutes, I think 9 minutes is the timing. You can get it earlier if you can afford it, but you're going to throw down your 4th command center somewhere near your army. And then right after the command center, when you have the money for it, you're going to throw down 3 more barracks. And those 3 barracks get tech labs. And that's preparing for the Ultralisk timing. Ultras typically come out at 10, somewhere between 10 to 11 minutes, sometimes later if Zerg isn't doing their build well. They can go Broodlord. That's up to you to scout. Like, you got to scan the main or send a drop there or something. But when it comes to Broodlords, like, you're going to see Corruptors first. So it's, like, obviously the early warning system for you. And if you were to see Broodlords, the correct response would be throw down 2 more starports with reactors, and then we can start pumping Vikings in mass. And then you obviously have the 3 extra barracks, which are going to be used for ghosts as well. That's all I have left for build order notes. We can watch the rest of this game. Just to kind of show you how this push works. I lost these medevacs. You shouldn't lose your medevacs. That should be pretty obvious. Yeah, just massing up, you know, Marines tanks. Oh, yeah. This I forgot. Throw down a 2nd factory. This is before the 4th base. You're going to get 2 factories with tech labs. I forgot about that. But yeah, that's all I missed. Obviously, combat shields comes right after stim, by the way. But yeah, we're just clearing creep. Once 2-2 finishes, we'll push out. There's that command center. There's those extra barracks. Fast forward more. Just killing creep. And then eventually, here we go. If you did this right, this should already be a planetary when you're moving out. You really shouldn't be moving out while you're building a planetary, because again, you're just opening yourself up to freeling damage. And always TvZ, and this is going to be like the most important note that I can give you. If you're pushing out in TvZ, rally your units back at home and leave like a couple tanks. The way I wall this off, if you notice this, like this tank is in range of this wall. So if he was to come here with Lings, like this tank's going to do that damage. And then I also have one on the high ground for safety. Like TvZ is starting to become more and more Zerg players just getting run-bys and doing damage. So if you're not rallying back at home, like you can super easily just lose the game to a counterattack. So definitely do that. So take a note, like how reduced the creep spread is from where it began, right? Like when we first dropped with our first 2 medevacs, the creep spread was up to here, right? So using those drops to actually just reduce this so that I can get close up to a base with this army is going to make this push infinitely easier. Don't push on a creep, like slow push it. I was being greedy this game. Like you shouldn't have your army on creep, which I'm pretty sure I do. I have the majority of my army on creep here. Not a good plan. I would avoid that. But I mean, yeah, this is just basic slow push with Terran. Just siege up the tanks, spread the units. Remember, I have 2-2. Zerg also has 2-2, but Zergs always get upgrades faster than Terran, so that's not a huge deal. And then on the extra barracks, we're producing those Marauders now because we're preparing for that Ultralisk transition, which I think he's doing. Yeah, he's got the Ultra Cavern up. I kind of the way I like to micro this is I like to have the medevacs with like the front group of Marines, and then if he ever chases me, I just load up and the tanks get free shots. But yeah, I mean, this game's already won, obviously. Like, there's nothing he can really do. The unit count is too low. We've got way too much stuff. I throw down the extra starports. I like to just have these buildings if I have the money for it. Like, if you're going to float money, you might as well just throw down extra buildings and command centers just to be ready for any transition. The only thing I don't do is throw down a Ghost Academy, which would have been really good because you'd kind of want to have Cloak started early as possible, but obviously nothing really challenged this push this game. So from here we literally just quickly finish him off and kill him. Ta-da! GG. So hopefully that wasn't too bad. Like I said, and I'm going to say it again, this isn't a build for lower level players. Like, this takes a lot of macro and micro at the same time, especially early game. Like, if you get into his base with your Hellions and you're trying to kill drones, like, you got to throw down your barracks, NG bays, and refineries at the same time. You can't just not do that, or else your push is going to be super delayed and you're just doing damage to yourself. Do I upgrade anything at the armory? Somebody asked in Twitch chat. I do. Usually I will get some vehicle weapons and then ship level weapons, but I forgot this game. That's like, and it's like the hardest part about this build is that there's so many things you got to remember to do like perfectly on time. Like if you forget your 1-1 or your 2-2, even by a little bit, like you're delaying your push later on in the match. And if you delay your push, like the reasoning you hit at 10 minutes with this is because it hits before ultras. And if you hit with Marine Tank when ultras come out, like it's not going to go as well as you would like it to go. You're probably going to end up retreating or just dying to the ultras. That's kind of why you throw down these barracks when you do. Like you want to start pumping Marauders as early as possible so that you can be ready for that. And then these would obviously get 2 reactors like I mentioned. So if you did go Corruptors, you can get Liberators and Vikings and all that good stuff. All right. If anybody in chat has any questions, you got 12 seconds because this tutorial is over. I think we nailed all the major points of this. Like I said, there's like 10 or 12 variations of this. This was just the one that I picked because it's the one that I do most often. There's a Hellbat variation, which I might do a video on. It's pretty good as well. Like anything that pressures the Zerg is getting the job done, right? All right. So that's it for me, my dudes. I hope you enjoyed. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below and I will get back to you in 2 to 3 business days. If not, hope you have a good day and keep on keeping on.